Oh my gosh. Am I streaming? Did it work? I don't understand. Let's go to the dashboard and see what's happening here. Okay, now it's showing me live, so I don't understand what the deal is here. Okay, well. Let's see if it's showing what it's supposed to be doing now. Showing what it's supposed to be showing. Okay, now it's showing me live, so I don't understand what the deal is here. Okay, well. I don't know why it's being weird. Okay, well, I guess I'll have to edit all this out because it's being weird. I wanted to make sure that, you know, I was live for this because I've been doing this all week. For those who need to do a recap, my name is Nicole. I am with Crimes, Lies, and Alibis. This is the verdict has been reached by the jury. Arizona versus Lori Vallow Daybell. This is for educational purposes only, seeking justice for victims and adults only. This content may be sensitive, so viewer discretion is advised. And we are just waiting for them to come back to the courtroom. So as sort of a recap, if you will, originally Charles' death was viewed as a domestic violence type situation that resulted in self-defense. That Lori Vallow's brother Alex shot Charles because he felt threatened when Charles came at him and Lori with a baseball bat. That's the allegation. That's the alleged incident that spiraled everything into this situation. So Charles was shot twice. I'm trying to figure out why my OBS is being weird. My OBS is being very weird. And I'm not sure why. I'm going to have to cut a lot of this out because this is stupid and frustrating. There. Okay. I think I figured it out. So, okay. Initially, I'm going to start all over. Welcome to Crime, Lies, and Alibis. I am Nicole. This is for educational purposes only. Adult content. Viewer discretion is advised. It's also the purpose of seeking justice for victims. Initially, Lori Vallow and her brother Alex had claimed that Charles was shot, her husband at the time, her fourth husband, was shot in self-defense because he was attacking them with a bat that Tylee had brought out of her room. Tylee stated in her interview with law enforcement that was not shown to the jury for reasons that she kept the bat with her because she was afraid for her own safety while she lived with her uncle Alex. She never really talked about what that meant, why she was afraid of her uncle Alex, or not even necessarily that she was afraid of him, but why she wasn't sleeping very comfortably, I guess, in his care, to where she felt she needed a baseball bat, but that's what she said. So she had this bat in her room. Well, when Lori was interviewed, she made it sound like Tylee and Alex came out of the respective bedrooms that they were sleeping in at the same time. So Charles, let's set the stage. Charles was supposed to be there at 7:30 to pick up JJ to take him to school. He goes to a year-round school. He has special needs. This was on July 11th. Charles was in town. He wanted to see JJ, so he picked him up and took to take him to school. He actually had a date the night.
Wix, one platform, any website.
That scared me.
Unlimited creation. Describe your.
He actually had a date the night before.
All right, back on the record. State of Arizona versus Lori Daybell, CR 2021-001-704. The parties are present. I'm going to have my staff go ahead and line up the jury to wait in the hallway for a minute.
While we're waiting, I'll go back on my finding it very curious that Lori stated that Tylee and Alex came out of the room at the same time, the rooms that they were sleeping in. Tylee had the bat. She said Alex came out. He was shirtless. He was pulling up his jeans and buttoning them. And that at that point, Charles was chasing her around the house because she had his cell phone. But Tylee made it sound like when she got out of the room, Alex and Lori were already in confrontation mode with Charles and arguing.
All right, the jury is present. Please be seated. Do we have a foreperson? Who's the foreperson?
Yes,
Has the jury?
Guilty, guilty, guilty.
yes, we have.
I'm going to ask you to hand that to my courtroom assistant.
If they find her not guilty, I don't know what I'm going to do. Guilty, guilty, guilty. She'll never get out of prison regardless, so this was just a field trip to her.
I'll ask the clerk to read and record the verdict.
In the Superior Court of the State of Arizona in and for the County of Maricopa, State of Arizona versus Lori Daybell, CR 2021-001704-001, Verdict, count one. We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn in the above entitled action, upon our oaths, do find the defendant, Lori Daybell, as to the crime of count one, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder occurring on or about July 11, 2019, guilty.
Yes.
Signed, foreperson.
I'm sorry, I clapped
Is this
loud.
your true verdict? So
Sorry.
say you one and all.
Yes.
On the court's own motion, I'll go ahead and ask the clerk to poll the jury.
Juror number one, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number two, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number six, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number seven, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number eight, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number nine, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 10, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 11, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 12, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 13, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 15, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 16, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to ask the jury to retire to the jury room for just about 2 minutes. I need to discuss something with the parties before we determine whether you're done or not. So the admonition still applies. Please go to the jury room for a few minutes.
All right for the jury.
I wonder how Swedish Boss feels because all day yesterday they were like all Team Lori, telling us that we had decided she was guilty when she was innocent and all this other stuff. So I'm sure they're a troll or they're genuinely upset for her. I mean, I had a feeling that they were going to find her guilty, but there's always that
Seated, the jury is no longer.
Swedish House
Present.
Boss huge scandal. Okay.
I'll ask the
Oops.
defendant, you indicated earlier perhaps
I got excited.
a willingness to stipulate to aggravating factors. Is that something you want to do, or do we want to go through this aggravation phase?
I'm willing to stipulate to it, Your Honor. All that it is the dangerous phase. Is that correct? There's only one statute there's only one sentence.
Well, the jury would need to find, first of all, whether or not this is a dangerous offense first. Secondly, whether the offense caused physical, emotional, or financial harm to the victim, or if the victim died as a result of the conduct of the defendant caused emotional or financial harm to the victim's immediate family.
Yes.
And then thirdly, the offense involved the presence of an accomplice. If you're willing to stipulate to all three of those, we can do that. If not, we'll bring the jury back in.
I will stipulate to it, Your Honor.
Of course you
All right.
will.
You understand that if you stipulate to this instead of a jury finding, well, let me back up. You understand the jury would have to find these aggravating factors beyond a reasonable doubt?
Yes.
All right, and do you understand that if you stipulate to these factors, instead of a jury doing it, I could also find additional aggravating factors at sentencing?
Sure.
Has anyone forced you or threatened you in any way to get you to stipulate to these factors?
No.
Has anyone promised you anything to get you to stipulate to these factors?
No.
Have you had any drugs, alcohol, or medication in the last 24 hours?
No.
Do you agree that pursuant to the jury's verdict of guilt, that this would be a dangerous offense because a deadly weapon or dangerous instrument was used?
I'm stipulating to it.
You agree that that's that this is a dangerous offense?
Correct.
And you're further stipulating that as a result of your conduct, at least the victim or the victim's family suffered emotional or financial harm?
Absolutely.
And you're also further
This is
agreeing
weird.
that the offense involved the presence of an accomplice?
Yes.
Is the state satisfied with the colloquy?
Yes, Your Honor, it appears it's knowing voluntarily made.
All right, the court does find that the stipulation to those three factors was knowingly, intelligently, voluntarily made. I will accept the defendant's stipulation.
Good job, Miss K.
At this time, I'm going to bring in the jury and release them from the admonition. Before we do that, well, as my staff's lining up the jury, do you want to have a sentencing date within approximately 30 days, or do you want to wait until after the next trial to be sentenced on this matter?
What does the court prefer?
It doesn't matter to me. Maybe you want to talk to your attorneys or advisory council about that. We don't have to do it right now. You can do it in a few minutes.
Okay. I had said this a couple of times for people who were in comments, not necessarily obviously on my page, but in general across social media platforms. They didn't understand why this happened and felt it was a waste of taxpayers' time and money. I disagree. And I disagree because sometimes the truth and justice comes at a cost. And it was fair for Charles's family and for his memory and legacy to have this trial because he deserved that. His memory deserves that. His family deserves that. They deserve closure. And they could not have closure knowing what she did and that she wasn't facing consequences. She's trying to get her... Oh.
Please be seated. The jury is present again. Members of the jury, you are now released from the admonition. This concludes your jury service. I want to thank you for your jury service in this matter and your attention in this matter. The admonition is lifted, meaning you can talk to anyone about any aspect of this case that you want to at this point, but you also have the right to not talk to anyone about any aspect about this case. I just need to take care of a few more matters, but if you want to wait for me in the jury room, I'd like to thank you personally, and then you can be on your way. If you don't want to wait for me, that's fine as well, but you are released to go at this time. All right?
He's an excellent judge. I really liked him as a judge. He was fair. He was very patient with Lori. You could tell that there were several times he was very annoyed with her because he would have to explain the same thing 5 or 6 different times in different ways, and she still wasn't understanding. And he was like, I'm not explaining it to you again. This is how it is. Just like he warned her, and she was upset about that because he said, as your own defense, you can...
Please be seated.
Hold that thought.
Do you want to talk to your advisory councils briefly to discuss whether or not you want to proceed to sentencing or wait until after the next trial?
If we could just wait till after the next trial, Your Honor.
Okay. So I'll hold off on ordering a pre-sentence report until we resolve the next remaining case. I've already set the dates, and we have a status conference in mid-May on that. So unless there's anything else from the state's perspective?
No, Your Honor.
From anything else from your perspective?
Nope.
All right, we'll be at recess on this matter.
Okay, I'm going to pause it here and kind of finish my last little thoughts. So he had warned her because she really didn't have a defense. And he warned her that as her own lawyer, she could not get on the stand and basically soapbox a testimony. If she wanted to testify, that was fine, but she would have to have a series of questions that would be asked by her co-counsel, if you will, and she would have to respond to those questions that were already approved by the court. So she couldn't just get up there and talk to herself and have, a soapbox or, a sonnet. She couldn't just sit there and go on her own merry way about like how she spins her narrative. And he also warned her that doing so would open her up for cross-examination, and they would be allowed to ask her things that she can no longer prohibit them from asking. For example, they couldn't address the parts that are in the articles of limine. Like, they couldn't bring up why she is an inmate and already incarcerated in Idaho. But if she said something during her testimony that opened that door, even accidentally, then that gives her vulnerability during cross-examination and bring all of that to the table for the jury to see. Chances are the jury knows who she is and know why she's an inmate. They're supposed to forget all of that and put it in another box and only pay attention to what was in the trial. And to me, the prosecution did an excellent job. They did. You know, sometimes it felt a little long-winded and sometimes it felt a little I don't know, but Lori mostly helped the prosecution. But here's the thing. She's attempting to have, and this is what I was saying earlier, she is attempting to have her first trial overthrown. That she didn't have a fair trial, that she wasn't fairly represented, blah, 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 what they always say. Okay? She is serving 3 life sentences consecutively, so it's one right after the other. She's already in her 50s, so the chances of her ever getting out of prison as it is slim to nil. But that wasn't the point of this trial. The point of this trial was, okay, well, now she's found guilty of another crime. So if for some reason she gets heard in Idaho and they decide, like, and we're talking, there's less than a 1% chance of this actually happening, that if she were to get that overthrown, then she would go to Arizona and serve her time there for Charles's murder. Unfortunately, Chad is still alive. There was just too much overwhelming evidence. Her talking about the life insurance policy to Chad. And she talked about the life insurance policy before Charles was killed. Then there's the phone call when she called the insurance company to find out about the life insurance policy. And she says, I have these 5 kids. We've been married 14 years and 5 children. Okay, well, 2 of those children are minors. The other 3 are adults. His older 2 children never lived with them. So she made it sound like she's raising his 5 children with no money and claimed that Charles owed people all this money. Because this is the narrative that Lori was pushing. And this was the narrative that she was spinning, that, you know, he owed people money. He was just this awful guy who had a temper. And that's the narrative that she was pushing. That the manipulation game that she plays. So now that they found that she is guilty to conspiracy, that they did set Charles up that day. So here was the timeline. Charles shows up. He was supposed to be there at 7:30 in the morning to take JJ to school. He gets there about 7:45, so he's a few minutes late. I think JJ's school opens at 8:20. So she said to the law enforcement detective lady that she wanted Charles to get JJ and go. She didn't want any altercations. She didn't want to argue with him. I'm so sick of this. We've been married for 14 years. On trial day 1, if you go back to part 3, I have her and Tylee's video interview with law enforcement. But she said that she wanted him to leave. She wanted him to get JJ and go. But the reality was, they put JJ in the car. He allegedly forgot his phone inside, which I don't even know why he would have put it down. But again, we're basing this off of what Lori is saying, because Charles is dead. Tylee is dead. JJ is dead. And Alex is dead. The only person who was in that house that day that's alive is Lori. So she makes the claim that Charles left his phone inside. and that she found it in the kitchen, had it in her hand. It was locked. She demanded to know who he had been talking to, and he was getting increasingly upset. So she's dancing around this empty room because she has no furniture, so she can watch herself dance, according to Tylee, whatever the heck that means. Because it's an empty room with a bunch of mirrors. How narcissistic is this woman? So and there's a circular, like, there's 2 entrances to the kitchen, so you can kind of go around the kitchen in like a circular motion. Ours is the same way here. So she's going around the kitchen, she's going around this room. He's, supposedly blundering after her to get his phone. He is getting upset and yelling because she has his phone. Again, this is her narrative. This is when she's laughing, he's screaming, and this is when she says that Alex and Tylee come out of the bedrooms because they were sleeping in different rooms, obviously. And she said Tylee had a bat, and Alex was shirtless and was pulling up his jeans over his boxers because he had just woken up too. And Tylee starts like pointing at him with the bat. According to Lori, he rips the bat away from her, and he makes Tylee fall. But when she said he made Tylee fall, she made it sound like he intentionally hurt Tylee, and that's not what happened. According to Tylee, she said that she let go of the bat because she realized, hey, he's stronger than her. She let go of the bat, and that's what caused her to lose her balance. So it wasn't like he did anything malicious to hurt Tylee. And she didn't present that as he did anything malicious to hurt her. But supposedly, according again to Lori, Alex and Charles are wrestling on the floor because Charles has this bat that he now took from Tylee. And according to Lori, he's kind of like weirdly flapping it around like he's a former minor league baseball player, and I'm sure he just like flailed this bat around with his right arm, even though he's a left-handed batter and pitcher. And that was how Alex got a mark on the back of his head. And the mark on the back of his head was very, very small and was barely bleeding by the time police came. But 2 shots were fired. And this is a problem because A, where the heck did the gun come from? Before Alex called 911, he took the gun back to his room that he was sleeping in and put it in its bag. It was an unsecured, unlocked bag that held a loaded gun in a house with a 7-year-old who had autism and didn't understand boundaries of, hey, if this doesn't belong to you, you shouldn't touch it. That makes a whole lot of sense, right? So he puts the gun back in the bag. He goes into the kitchen and grabs this paper towel to put on the back of his head, but his sunglasses are on the top of his head. So figure that one out. He sleeps with his sunglasses on, I guess. Then there's like 30 minutes before he calls 911. The first shot to Charles went through 2 chambers of his heart before exiting out his back. The second shot, so here's how it went. They believe it happened. Charles was shot in the heart. He grabs his chest, hits his knees because he had marks on his knees from hitting the hard floor, and he went back. As he was laying on the ground, he was shot a second time in the upper abdomen, and that bullet went out his shoulder. And because it went out his shoulder against the floor, there was, I can't remember what it's called, but the bullet wound exit was different than it was the exit wound when it went through the heart because he was up against that hard surface. Lori kept saying, oh, he had a bamboo shirt on, and that's, you know, that bamboo shirt is a tougher material, and it had nothing to do with what she was claiming. So he was already on the ground. There was no signs that CPR was attempted. So they wanted to make sure Charles was good and dead. There was at least 30 minutes before 911 was called. Meanwhile, Lori leaves the house with Tylee and JJ because Tylee is told to go run out in the car and be with JJ as soon as Charles takes the bat. So she doesn't see any of this. She's out in the car with JJ. She takes Tylee and JJ, goes to Burger King, gets JJ his chicken fries or whatever, goes to Walgreens, buys flip-flops for herself and for Tylee, but in the video at Walgreens, you can see her walking in and she has sneakers on. But then later, when she gets there and there's police, she has the flip-flops on. So it was like, well, I needed to buy shoes to go take JJ to school because it's hot and the pavement is hot, and I needed to walk him in the school, but I didn't even have my shoes on. So by the time she gets back, they think that they need to tell her that her husband is dead, and she's like, I know, I was here. The other thing that was sketchy is Charles's phone was with her. So when law enforcement was looking for his phone, and Lori came back to the house because she had 2 cell phones, and the law enforcement lady had the 1 cell phone and said, we need you to come back to the house. She had the cell phone. Tylee pulled it out of the cup holder in the car. And the passcode was 0000. Now, Charles was a well-to-do man. He sold insurance. He traveled all over the place. The idea of him not having a passcode on his phone that's not 0000 is wild. Just wild. And all I can think of is Emily Gilmore in her panic room. 11111. Like, who does that when they want to have a secured device? My thought is, and this is my speculation only, after Charles was dead, they used his face to unlock his phone and change the password so they could remember it. That's what I think they did. I know that's dark, and it's possible that I'm wrong, but it's also possible that I'm right, because I just can't imagine there being in the realm of possibility that his passcode was a bunch of zeros. It doesn't make any sense. So that's kind of a recap. I suggest you watch the trial. It's 7 days. You can probably skip through some stuff. because it's all live. I was going to go back to, well, I guess we can look at the front of the building. That's fine. But yeah, that's basically like the recap of what happened. She wanted the insurance money. He was insured for $1 million. She wanted the $4,000 for Social Security because she would get $1,900 and some odd dollars a month for herself for taking care of JJ, and the money for JJ because he has a deceased parent. Not only was it, and see, she only really would have been eligible for the Social Security money for JJ had, she not had a conspiracy to commit murder. If he actually died in self-defense. Okay, let's pretend he actually died in self-defense. JJ would have gotten that money, and by proxy her, but she would not have gotten the second part, likely because they were not living together. They had been separated. The house that they have been living in for a couple of weeks, he rented for Lori and the 2 kids. So she lied when she went to the Social Security office because they were still married. She lied and stated that they were living together when they were, in fact, not living together, and that would have changed the outcome. But then she never reported to Social Security when the 2 children went missing and I use air quotes, missing in September. And she never reported it to Social Security when the children were recovered, because they don't normally check to see if a person's receiving Social Security. It has to be usually reported, because there's so many people, I'm sure, that what are they going to do? Just every day be like, look, check the news reports and see if people have been found, guilty of crimes or charged with crimes. It wasn't until an investigation was launched, I think January, after the children were found. During the investigation, that was when they discovered that Lori was getting Social Security money for JJ. So up until January, she was still getting money for those two kids. Because again, Tylee's dad died the year before by a heart attack. So Lori's ex-husband number 3, dead. Soon to be ex-husband number 4, dead. Chad Daybell in prison on death row. Tylee dead. JJ dead. Tammy, who is Chad's wife, died mysteriously 3 days before Lori and Chad got married in Hawaii. The death toll surrounding these people is wild. Alex died 3 days before they exhumed Tammy's body to check her circumstances of death and do a whole investigation on that. He died from some kind of heart issue that is questionable, but I think he was cremated too. So good luck attempting to reopen that case. There's just this huge death toll surrounding Lori, and I'm pretty convinced that the only thing that saved Colby was being an adult and already being married when all of this happened, because I think he and Kelsey got married 2018 and this all happened in 2019. I think he and Kelsey got married the year before. And I don't know if Colby was there every day, but he was there most days in the courtroom. When they would zoom out, you could see the back of his head. And he does have a YouTube channel, and if you somehow found me and haven't found him, you should check him out, Colby Ryan. He has some pretty great insight to what it's like being raised by Lori Daybell. Vallow. And that was the other thing that drove me nuts during the trial, and I'm going to conclude this because I have some stuff in Stern's things to report on. But, the heck was I going to say? Colby. I just lost my train of thought on myself. Good job. I don't know, it just had to be hard to be raised by her. I can't imagine having that for a mother. Manipulative, narcissism. I mean, and her narcissism runs really deep. It's terrible. When he did an interview with her, and he does share his interview with her, his not really an interview. It was a conversation because he wanted some answers out of her. And, oh, thanks. I got a message, her name. I was going off of her name and something that irked me during the trial. I wish the judge would have changed. But anyway, she literally says to him, now keep in mind, sensitive information, Tylee's remains were, Tylee was dismembered and burned in Chad's fire pit in his backyard. Sorry, my son needed me for a second. So she says to Colby that the reason his sister was cremated was because she wanted to be cremated as part of her spiritual journey. As part of her spiritual journey, she wanted to be cremated, and that is why she was burned in Chad Daybell's backyard. in his fire pit. That's disgusting. Like, poor Colby didn't get a chance to say goodbye to Charles, didn't get a chance to say goodbye to his siblings. By the time their remains were found, there was next to nothing left of them. It was horrible. It was horrible what she did. And honestly, I kind of wish she would have gotten the death penalty for this, because obviously Lori's never going to feel bad. And I was just reminded where I lost my train of thought. So thank you for that. So she would go back and forth between Lori Vallow, Daybell, Lori Daybell. And one of the things, and she was very situational who she used it when she was talking to as state witnesses. Sometimes she would say his name and say Charles, but most of the time it was my husband. My husband. When my husband was shot, and I know why she was doing it, because, you know, she wanted sympathy. Like, why would she want her husband dead? That's horrible, or whatever. But, you know, obviously she says in her interview with Ellie that she, you know, didn't want to be married to him anymore because he was awful and always fighting with her and mean, and had all these awful threatening texts that she didn't show. Like, you have all these threatening texts from him, but you're not showing a single one. Like, how does that make sense? If that were me and I was truly receiving threatening text messages from my husband, who was just shot that morning by my brother in self-defense, I would be showing all of those texts. I'd be, look, he said this. Look, he said this. I'd be singing like a canary. But Lori had nothing to prove any of the things that she was saying was true. So the only reason she was calling him her husband was her manipulation game. And I'm kind of disappointed that the judge allowed her to do that, because he is her victim, and he is the victim in the case. And of course they're not going to use the word victim, because they don't want the jury to look at him as a victim. It's a lot easier to find someone guilty when you look at someone as a victim versus, you know, this person is a potential victim, but you call them by their name in the courtroom generally, or, you know, Mr. Vallow or Charles Vallow or Charles. But she would go, my husband, and like to his sister who was completely heartbroken because her brother was killed, and the way she found out was horrible. So here is Lori, who is callous and cruel. Charles dies the 11th in the morning. She decides the afternoon of the 12th. So a whole day passes, and she decides to text one of his sons and say, I wanted to tell you that your dad died yesterday. And that's it. That's all she tells him. I wanted to let you know that your dad died yesterday. No context, no anything. So now his son is like, what the hell? So he tries calling her, and she does not answer his calls. He tries texting her, and she doesn't answer his texts. He's freaking out because he doesn't understand if it's a joke. So he calls his Aunt Kay, who testified and said, do you know what's going on with my dad? And Kay was clueless. I think she's in Louisiana living. Obviously this was in Arizona. She was at the nail salon with her granddaughter, I think she said. Completely clueless as to what he was talking about. Calls her husband, who Googles it and finds out that Charles was killed the day before in a self-defense with Alex Cox, which is Lori's brother. Can you imagine being a person who gets a text message by their step-parent to tell them that their parent is dead and no context? Nothing. Won't answer a phone call. Won't text back. Just want to tell you your dad is dead. Mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. So Lori being in prison is exactly where she belongs. This was a giant field trip to her. I mean, it didn't matter if she was found guilty or not, really, in the grand scheme of things, not for her, because she's never getting out of prison. But it meant justice for Charles. It meant closure for family. And it meant one more piece of evidence and piece of proof that Lori is exactly where she belongs. And I'm hoping because she has another trial coming up in the beginning of June for conspiracy to commit murder. He's still alive, so he gets to tell his story of her niece's ex-husband. So that is coming up. She has another case, and I'm hoping after that she goes back to Idaho and we never have to see her again. I'm hoping that the Supreme Court doesn't give her anything solid for appeals, and they just keep her in Idaho forever and she rots in a cell and is never seen by the public again. Because I think Idaho is another state that got rid of Son of Sam, so she could make money off of her story. However, now that she's been found guilty for Charles, that does open the door for her to have a civil suit filed against her by Charles's family. And in that civil suit, they can take any money she earns. So I kind of hope that that's what they do, because she's been found guilty. So now if they turn around and they sue for damages, she'll be worth nothing. And that's exactly what she is. Nothing. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll be back in probably about 45 minutes. I want to cover some stuff in Stearns because I guess he's in court tomorrow. Thank you.